often say to staff that we don't innovate for the future, we innovate from the future. So we need to jump out a little bit ahead, look back, and see what it is.
Begin with the end in mind. Welcome to Opportunity Knocks. I'm your host, Todd Patton, and I am in front of the Urban League of Broward County right now with the Sprinter. This is a special place. And I was fortunate enough to sit on the board, the corporate board, for a few years. And I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Germaine Smith. She is a rock star. And by all meaning of that word rock star, I mean, she is the most polished CEO I've ever met. Just how she runs meetings, now I'm hyping you up high because it's the truth, but she's a leader and a fierce leader, but she's got a heart of gold. And when I reached out to her and said, Germaine, would you be my guest? And she said, absolutely yes. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Todd. Really appreciate you coming by the Urban League and the Sprinter. I'm just like, this is beautiful. This is great.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here because I pulled up and you specifically sent an email, go in the back. And I forgot, this is the back. And I drove it around. I said, hey, who are you in the Sprinter? I said, I'm doing a podcast. Oh, you're in the other side. But so I want to hear your story of because what you've done here is really remarkable. First of all, the nonprofit industry, it's a tough world. And I'd love to hear how you got started. So why don't you take me back and just give me kind of where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up? Just give us a background.
Yeah, it's good. But again, thanks for coming. I really appreciate taking the time. And as you said, the years that you served on the Urban League's board of directors. So for me, being a part of the nonprofit sector has probably always been in my blood. This idea of giving back within community is important. So I started off thinking I wanted to be an architect. Yeah. So this is
growing up in South Florida.
Yeah. So I was actually born and raised in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. So if you hear that accent, no need to wonder anymore. That's what it is. Went to majority of all my years there, 9th grade, left and moved to Florida. So my high school years were here in Florida. And during my high school time, I read a book called Kafir Boy. And it really gave the perspective of South Africa, apartheid South Africa, from a Black 10-year-old's perspective, living in shanty towns in South Africa. So I knew in my lifetime apartheid would no longer be. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to become an architect. I'm going to move to South Africa. And I'm going to rebuild all these shanty towns because that's what I'm going to do.
And how old were you at that time as a kid?
No, by this time I'm in high school.
Yeah,
so probably 11th grade, right? So trying to figure it out. Applied to the University of Miami School of Architecture, and I actually got in. Go figure. Nice. Then I got in, and that was the point. I would talk a whole lot more than I would draw, and would probably talk a whole lot better than the drawing part of it. I would actually say that my drawings looked at that time like stick figures compared to the beauty that I saw in other people's drawings. But at the end of the day, it really wasn't about architecture, right? It was really about how you can use your skills, talents, abilities to help transform a community. So I realize in retrospect, I get to do this now to be an architect of community, of ideas and programs and services that get to change the lives of young children, like I read in that book, right?
Wow.
Just happens not to be in South Africa, which is definitely on the to-do list to visit.
It is. That's going to happen.
It's going to happen. So fast forward, decided University of Miami School of Architecture was not for me. And I also didn't need to pay for a private education. So headed off to Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. Yes. Go Noles, spent my undergraduate work there, and then I did my master's in social work also there, and then made my way back down to South Florida. So in that process, I got to the Urban League of Broward County, and I've been here. This will be my 28th year.
28. So that was your first job out of school.
Yeah, so I worked in government relations when I was working on my master's degree in Tallahassee, which was a really great experience and clearly prepared me to be here. But when I got to South Florida, this has been my only gig.
And explain the Urban League model. So there's the National Urban League, which is in Cleveland, is it?
In New York.
Or New York. And then there are chapters. So the
Yeah.
Broward chapter is what you're CEO of.
Correct.
And how long have you had that role?
18 years.
18 years as a CEO.
Yeah. So I tell people that, you know, when you get clear about what it is that you truly want to do, the universe begins to align. And I was really, really clear that when I left Tallahassee, I interviewed actually over the phone. There was no virtual anything. So I did the initial interview over the phone. And I really prayed for a job that would allow me to be in community. And I love working with girls and women. So I said, that's the kind of job I want. And guess what? That manifested. The first job, or the first role I had at the Urban League was a program coordinator at two elementary schools, working with young girls, elementary school girls. Before STEM was a thing, my program was about arithmetic, reading, technology, and science for girls. It was called ARTS. And it was a $50,000 program. And wait for it. Yes, that included my salary and benefits and the program services for the girls and their families. So yeah, we've come a long way, baby.
So how did you move up the ladder? You know, like what was it? Something? Give us some tips, some advice of what you think separated you. Because I mean, look, you're young now, and 17 years ago, you were young to be a CEO running a big organization like this, not profit. What do you think? You know, skill wise that you excelled at?
Yeah. So one of the things clearly when I got to the Urban League of Broward County, I had the degree portion, the cognitive portion now. So I had my bachelor's degree, I had my master's in social work. But I think the differentiator from that perspective is that I was very clear of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to use my skill sets of communication, whether it's oral and writing communication, my ability to think through processes and get those processes on paper and deliver against, you know, various performance aspects. I knew how to do that. And I knew how to do that pretty well. So my program, as I said, was a $50,000 program at two schools. 6 months later, because I believed in the program, it moved to a middle school program, and I got it up to about $150,000 at that point. And then, and again, perspective, this is 1996. Okay. So,
which is a lot of money in 96,
exactly.
Especially tripling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for perspective in that. And then I said, well, if we could do it in elementary, we could do it in middle, we could do it in high school. So within 1 year, I moved the program from an elementary only program to a middle school and high school program, right? So the idea that when you get passionate about something and then you can take your skill sets to attach it to that passion and help to grow it, then everybody else around you sees that. So of course, the then CEO was just like, well, shoot, if she could grow that, what else can she grow? And then that really began to open up the pathway for me to move into higher roles at the Urban League. In about 1.5 years, I moved to the vice president role.
Wow.
And I would say to you and to the audience that when I met the then vice president of programs, she said to me in the first interview, when I met her face to face, because I had done the interview over the phone with her, she says, you will be the VP of programs one day. And I thought, oh, you don't have to butter me up. I know this is not a lot of money. You know, it was like $23,000 I was going to be paid. But I'm passionate about this. I want to do this. Needless to say, 1.5 years later, I didn't know that she was going to be moving on to do something else. She wanted to go part-time, actually. And she said to the president and CEO, your vice president of programs is already here. You don't need to look for the person. So you need to have individuals who are willing to not only be a mentor for you, but who are willing to champion you, willing to be a sponsor, willing to speak into rooms that you will never enter into. And, you know, to the point of this podcast, opportunity knocks, opportunity knocked. And that worked.
That's great. And how do you recommend, or is there any advice that you can give on putting yourself out? Is it just being prepared and making sure that you do that? Because that's something that you didn't go and ask her to mentor you or do this. I mean, she saw something in you and said, is there anything specific? And I'm going to tell you before you answer this, what I saw, because, and just to give everybody kind of the structure, there's a board of directors, and that board, I report to the board. So I can imagine in those meetings back then, that board seeing what you're doing and saying, we got somebody here like this. Like I could just see that happening because I witnessed it and I saw how much respect the board had for you're a doer and you get things done. And to me, it was organization. You were very prepared and organized. But I'd love to hear what you like skill wise on that. Is it being over prepared or is it building a team? I know it's a lot of all the above, but
I would say to you that from an individual perspective, it is about being prepared, but it is also about being courageous and being bold, right? And I think a lot of times, many people, you have so much going on in your head that you second guess and you think I can't and all these things. And that's really normal, right? At some point in time, though, you have to get past that and say, this is my space. And I'm at least going to walk into it. Whether or not the door's open or not, whether they swing wide open or it's just like a little slit that you get to kind of squeeze through. I really encourage people to be bold and courageous in what it is that you want to do. Say it out loud. Say out loud, this is my truest desire. Whether that person can help you in that or not, you don't know, but you put it into the universe. And I have a strong belief that the universe, again, aligns. Whatever you put into the universe, positive, negative, or in between, it comes back like a boomerang.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And one of the things is, look, if you're not an entrepreneur, you don't own your own company, you could still be bold and courageous. As an example of what you did, you were working at a maybe not entry level, but a lower level, and you said, "I'm going to be bold and courageous," and then you became the leader here. So I think that's a really good takeaway. Is that you don't, although this podcast is geared a lot towards entrepreneurs and encouraging and motivating entrepreneurs to start a business. But if you're working for a company and you want to move up fast, there's no better way to do it than what you just said, which is being bold and courageous. And look, owners love that. When they see somebody that has that, it's like, oh, man. I mean, that's.
And I think even in the world of the nonprofit sector, we are also social entrepreneurs. So from the perspective that I've had the privilege of being able to generate ideas that go beyond the concept of philanthropy. So we, for example, do infill housing. So we would get property. So in essence, we're developers, we're contractors. So we do that, but for a purpose, right? As social entrepreneur, it is for the purpose of being able to advance a mission. In our case, the mission of an urban league is to advance equity and parity, to give people an opportunity to grow economically, be more self-sufficient. What better way to do that than to own a home, right? To be able to at least have that pathway. So, for example, that example of being able to use property, build houses on them, sell them affordable, that profit or surplus in our world comes back into the mission of the Urban League. So we run the Urban League like any other business. The only difference between the nonprofit entity and the for-profit entities, whatever that surplus or profit is at the end of the day, doesn't go back into my bank account or into the bank account of board members, but instead it revolves back into the mission of the organization. But I say to all my nonprofit partners and colleagues, if you're not in the business to make money, you're not going to be in business.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can't have a place like that. You can't. I mean, you need money in any business. Right. So that's interesting. I want to talk about that because real estate here I can't move from my house. I bought it 6 years ago, and I look at what it's worth now, and I'm like, and my taxes and if I bought a place anywhere, I'm like, I'm happy out there. I love it, but if I couldn't imagine being a young person starting out and moving here and saying, so explain that program a little bit more. First of all, the Urban League, how do you find the properties? And then do you have like a portfolio of property?
Yeah, we actually do. So well, I'll tell you the big thing.
Please.
So we actually have under control right now the largest swath of property available to being under the control of a social impact organization, i.e. Urban League. We have control of 20 acres of property in Broward.
Yeah, 20?
20 acres.
What?
And
that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And that again goes back to being socially goes back to being entrepreneurial,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
We owned 5.6 acres. We've owned it for 20 years. We actually bought that property to build the building that we're in front of now. Once we were able to get this building this land, I should say, in a long-term lease with the county, again, being entrepreneurial, we said, you know what? I'm going to build on the land here, keep the 5.6 acres, and this is in the city of Oakland Park. Next door to it is a school that the school board no longer is using as a school site. We approached the school board around acquiring that property in 2021 is when we signed that deal. There was a church next door to the school that said, wow, I see what you're doing here. You know, how can we be a part of that? So between all those pieces of property, we now have 20 acres that we will be building and executing the largest affordable housing development in Broward County's history to date at 469 units. Mixed income, mixed ages, mixed ownership.
469?
469 units.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. So again,
is there any houses or no? Not single family?
There'll be townhomes, villas, and multifamily.
Townhomes, nice.
Yeah, so there'll be townhomes there. So again, what that does, it allows the Urban League to be entrepreneurial in fulfilling its mission. We also, for example, in 2020, we were designated as a community development financial institution, something that we worked on for the better part of 5 years, but it came to fruition in 2020. And what that simply means to all the entrepreneurs out there, the Urban League lends capital to small not necessarily even just small, minority-owned businesses, right? And that is something, again, Urban League being entrepreneurial in the way in which we're going to take our assets and our brand and being able to invest in other companies. And it is a loan. We are paid back with interest. That interest rolls right back into the mission of the organization. So again, a lot of different ways that whether or not you're doing it in a for-profit sense as a entrepreneur, as we would think about it, or social entrepreneur because you're doing it based on a mission that revolves back in some way, it's all the same tactics and strategies. It's a business.
And that's great. And as an entrepreneur, as a minority entrepreneur, if somebody's listening to this and they say, I want to start a business, how do they do it? What do? They contact Urban League and they say, I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell everybody, education is big here for entrepreneurial education. Yes. And you have a whole center built for it. So talk about that, because they could just, and that's all, there's no cost on that, right?
There's no cost to it. There is, again, being entrepreneurial, there is a couple of the tracks that would be like how would you put it? It would be like a small cost to being like a subscription cost.
Yeah, subscription model.
To a subscription model.
Yeah.
So if entrepreneurs are out there listening to me, particularly those who are women-owned, Black-owned, Hispanic-owned entrepreneurs, you can literally go onto the Urban League's website, ulbroward.org. You look up the Entrepreneurship Center, and our Entrepreneurship Center is based, just like Todd said, providing first and foremost education. Even if you just have an idea right now, there are various tracks that you can be on that we can help you to cultivate your idea, listen to your idea. If you have a business already and you think that you're ready for capital, there's an opportunity for you to go on there. You can put in all your information and we'll tell you if you're eligible for any of our products, right on the website.
And that's your money, that the loans that you give out, it's Urban League's, like you don't have to go through a third party or.
No.
That's pretty cool.
We decide.
You underwrite it.
That's underwrite awesome. It. We have an underwriting team here at the Urban League. We have an education team here at the Urban League, an entrepreneurship team that focuses on educating you around the work, whatever it is that you're doing. We have consultants specifically in the area of tech, accounting, legal, and marketing. So those are our 4 primary areas that we will, assist folks on, because those are the 4 top areas that we see people falter in. And then again, as I said, and this really came across because people would say to me, Urban League should be in the business of economic development and helping small businesses and the like. And I didn't disagree. I said, I agree. That is a part of creating assets, economic parity, and so forth. But for me, I wanted the Urban League to only enter that space if we could, we wanted to not only hear your ideas, I wanted to be able to fund your ideas. So until we were able to do that, I said there are plenty of people who can help folks with business plans and so forth, which we do that too. But I wanted, if you had the opportunity to give capital, or loan, in our case, capital, that's the space we wanted to be in. So again, we're here. It's our opportunity to be, a social entrepreneur, but then it also clearly helps entrepreneurs in the space gain the education that they need to grow their businesses and also the capital access that's necessary.
Can you give us any success stories from that, like where somebody came in and I know, I'm sure you have many, but was there anyone that you could say, yeah, there's this one, this is the business that's running now? Do you have any yet?
So it's really interesting. This was actually what you would call a participatory loan. So there's an entity of Black women who use their primary way of building their business is a franchise model. So they have a few franchises, and one of them was Tropical Smoothie, right? The Tropical Smoothie Cafe. I think that's what they're called. So they wanted to open a Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and they wanted to do it literally up the street from the Urban League. So if you are familiar with where the Urban League is, it is definitely a food desert. There are a lot of different challenges that surround, the community in terms of where we're physically located. So the idea that these Black women would want to open up a, relatively healthy food option within a predominantly African American community and would come to the Urban League for financing was like an easy checkoff. Like, how do we do this, right?
Yeah.
So we weren't able to provide all the capital. So then we reached out to other CDFIs and we came into a participatory loan process, right? Where we provided a portion of the capital. Another entity provided a part of the capital. Bottom line is they opened up their Tropical Smoothie right here on Broward and 27th Avenue. In the Walmart shopping
in the corner
plaza,
of Broward,
right
here.
Yeah,
oh, that's a good spot.
Great spot.
Yeah.
I go there all the time. So what does that do, right? We now have more food options in the community. Jobs are created as a result. We're healthy, right? We're supporting a Black-owned, women-owned business, and yes, they paid off their loan and they're continuing to grow.
They paid it off.
Mm-hmm. They paid it off.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So again, you have that. We've supported legacy businesses. Another one that I could think about was a childcare center that would have more than likely closed because the legacy owner of it was ready to retire. A employee decided, I really can do this. Came to us. We allowed her to borrow the money. She bought the business, and she actually expanded now to another childcare center. So again,
and that goes to your point of passion, having passion for something and going on. I'm sure she has a lot of passion for the childcare, and that's great.
And this is all again going back to when opportunity knocks.
Yep.
Urban League is here, right? So
I love it.
We want to be a part of that.
So tell me the future here. What's next? Because you keep shocking every time I read up on this. I'm like, wow, she just has this vision of what's next. What's next for the Urban League? Is there a big plan that you have in mind? Is it? We talked about obviously so much with economic growth, with real estate. We talked about, but is there any other thing that?
Yes, I think all of that is a part of the next for the Urban League. So one of the things that we're really excited about is in 2025 will mark the 50th year of the Urban League of Broward County in this community. So we will be celebrating. Board members get to come back and be a part of, the celebrations. Individuals that we have served over this long period of time in our community. We really want to celebrate and highlight the impacts the Urban League has had. So when you think about your Urban League of Broward County, we operate in 6 areas: education, entrepreneurship, jobs, justice, housing, and health. So elevating those 6 pillars from the idea of direct services and how we impact the individual families, the individuals themselves, and of course their families. We want to continue going down that road and making sure that we're elevating that. We want to make sure that we're strengthening and leveraging our assets, our brand, our financial capital, our human capital, and of course, diversifying revenue. That's what all businesses are about, right? How can we diversify the revenue of the organization? So yes, state, local, federal grants will always be with us. Corporate donations, foundations will always be with us. We want to, of course, expand those as much as we can, of course, like any other business model. But as we talked about, how do we elevate even more social enterprise so that we get that unrestricted resources so we can continue to do this work in a more innovative way. I often say to staff that we don't innovate for the future, we innovate from the future. So we need to jump out a little bit ahead, look back, and see what it is.
Begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned staff, and I want to close on this because, look, we talked about Urban League, we talked about you. You have a lot of the same people for a long time, and you have a solid crew. I mean, this is how do you build a team like that? And talk a little bit about your team building and how you've done that.
I will tell you that the only way, if you're really trying to grow a business, you have to have great people around you. If you are the sharpest knife in the drawer, you're not going to do so well. You need to have, iron sharpens iron, right? And you need to have those individuals around you. But whatever you can do to not only attract them, but to retain them. And that's what you're talking about, Todd. I have a really great team around me, an executive vice presidents of philanthropy, communication, programs, finance, that have been with me more than a decade.
And they've moved up similar to how your story. You can see them moving. I love seeing that.
Absolutely.
But is there any tip that you can give on, first off, you said attracting and retaining.
Yeah.
So when it comes to attracting quality talent like you have, is there any tips that you can give an entrepreneur of how to attract? How do you find those people?
Right. And they're going to be in places that you're probably not even looking, and they could actually already be in your company. So I want to actually speak to the point that you're saying, Todd, that all 3 of the 4 that I currently have moved up in the company. So look for those hidden gems, those diamonds in the rough that's in your company, that with some additional coaching, encouragement, opportunities for training, that you can get them to that next level. Don't overlook that, because then they are already, like, for me, they're already Urban League people.
Bought in. Yeah,
they're bought in.
They believe
right?
Yeah.
They understand the mission. They understand the grind. They understand the story. So you want to get those people and see if you, look inside, see if you have that. Then secondly, once you find them, right, you elevate them, you support them, then it is, I think the retention at the highest level is really about relationships. I believe very strongly in truly authentic relationships. And when you have truly authentic relationships with your staff, on the good days and the bad days, they know they can come to you. And I've been able to cultivate that within the team that we have. And I don't suspect they will be with me forever, but I also don't suspect that I'll just get a email, I'm out.
Too much respect
and too much respect for that on both sides.
Yeah, for sure. And I've witnessed it, and then there's the board, recruiting the right board and getting the right people, and that's a whole nother thing. But like, to your point, if you don't surround yourself with the right people who are smarter than you, then you're in trouble, because then you're just So I love how, and then finding people like the Sean Sackmans that know numbers, and he's a bank and he's good with that.
Right.
And then the marketing person, and then, you have that team.
You have to have all those different talents. So even though I am required to have a board of directors as a nonprofit organization, as a 501c3 nonprofit is a requirement. As an entrepreneur, you should have a board of directors.
Yeah.
You should have a group around you that you can go to in a similar way that I do. So who is that marketing expert that you can go to, the banking expert that you can go to, the risk management expert that you can go to, the legal expert? Who are those people? So create your personal board of directors.
I love that.
Across the board.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
So, and that's just reaching out to somebody that you trust, that you like, and saying, I have a business, and would you spend an hour a month with me, or 2 hours, just to.
Right. And I would even challenge folks to formalize it. So therefore, it's one thing for me to reach out to you individually and let's have a conversation, but there's a difference when you put the value proposition is in the collective. It's not so much just in the individual, right? So when you put all those disciplines around the table, focus on your business, it's like magic is going to happen.
That's great.
So
that
buy
is
them
great.
Dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever. You
That's
get them
awesome.
around the table, honor their time, right? So maybe you do it once a quarter, whatever, because individually you can reach out to them, but once a quarter.
Love this.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
On me. 5-7 people. They're
5 to 7. Keep it.
5 to 7. Not a lot.
And did you say formalize or not formalize?
Formalize.
Yeah, make it, because you're very strict. That's what I loved about your meetings. So you're saying have an agenda, have a plan, be organized, know exactly what it is. And by the way, you could coach people on this because you were so good at it. I'm like, when I looked at everything, I'm like, look, it's just so,
formalize it.
Yeah.
And what it will do, right? Because imagine these 5 or 7 people focused for an hour and a half on you and your business and whatever the business challenge is that you might be putting in front of them. They are 100% focused on you. And the formalizing of it really gives an honor to their time. So that it's not
respect.
Like, we're not just here talking. Here's the agenda. If you hear my financials, this is where we are, so forth and the like.
This is gold. I mean, this is what you just said here. And I've been doing now 20 podcasts, but that piece, how we ended this, is gold. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take your advice on that, and I'm going to do that same exact thing. I have an app that I'm building. It's called One Home. And, I was like, how do I get access to what you just said? Brought it together for me. Right. So, part of this podcast is me building businesses and documenting my journey, the ups and downs, no fluff, there's a lot on social media. You just see people winning, and there's a lot of adversity you got to deal with. There's a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of, and I want to show those, and I want to show the bad, but also the good, and all of it, and in just a transparent form. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be documenting this. Yeah. And I know you're so busy, but you are going to I'm going to be reaching out to you saying once a quarter for an hour, if you would meet with me, I would love, because I want the all-star team, and you are that all-star team. I
appreciate that.
So, Germaine, thank you so much. This has been incredible. And we have some gold nuggets that we got from you, and nothing that I knew that was going to happen when I was meeting with you. So it's always so good to see you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for highlighting the Urban League. And to the audience out there, just keep listening to Opportunity Knocks.
Yes. And when's the gala? The big gala? Is that going to be the 50th year now?
So the 50th year will be in 2025.
Okay. But the gala is this year, 2024.
In September.
These galas, by the way, are over the top. I mean, they're fun.
They are fun. It's not your rubber chicken dinner, all that stuff. We party with a purpose.
What's the theme this year?
Oh, it's coming out. I cannot tell you yet, because it's always like a boom, 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 boom. So that's coming out with a presenting sponsor in 30 days. So just keep tuned in to ulbroward.org. Follow us on our social media platforms. We're on all of them, and just keep connected. And again, for the small business owners out there, use your Urban League as a resource.
Yes.
It is a resource for you. If you're a family out there struggling, or you know a family that is, use your Urban League as a resource, because you know what? We never know, right? Opportunity can knock in different ways. And sometimes you can feel a little bit knocked down. But I often say to people, most recently I heard this, that when you're feeling buried, maybe you're not being buried, you're just being replanted for a new season. So,
another nugget.
So let's get to replanting.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Germaine.
Awesome.
All right.